torchlight flickered. 300 wolves stood in the ceremonial clearing, their breath misting in the cold Montana air. The ancient pines surrounding them rose like cathedral walls, dark against the winter sky. Above, the full moon hung massive and silver, casting long shadows across the stone platform at the clearing's center. Tonight was the mate gathering, the most sacred night in the Crescent Moon Pack's calendar. The night when fate decided futures, when bonds formed that could never be broken, when the moon goddess herself was said to walk among her children. Tonight, Alpha King Theron Ashwood would choose his Luna. Every unmated female in the territory had prepared for months. Silk dresses imported from the coast, hair braided with silver thread, perfumes designed to enhance natural scent. The air was thick with hope and desperation in equal measure. But Arya Vale wore a simple healer's robe of undyed linen. She stood at the edge of the clearing, partially hidden behind one of the carved wooden pillars that marked the sacred circle. Her fingers clutched a leather medicine bag, the worn strap digging into her shoulder. Inside, bandages, needle and thread, salves for burns, tinctures for pain, just in case. Healers always prepared for the worst. She had not come here to be chosen. She had come because Elder Rowan had ordered it. Every healer present, he had said, in case of injury, in case someone's wolf emerged too violently during the bonding rituals. Arya was 23 years old. She had been a healer's apprentice since she was 13, since the night her parents died. 10 years of learning which herbs stopped bleeding, which poisons left no trace, which wounds would never truly heal. She knew all about wounds that never healed. Her mother had been the pack's head healer. Her father, a master of ancient remedies, had traveled to 5 territories to study under the eldest healers in the continent. Together, they had saved hundreds of lives. The pack had honored them, respected them. Then came the rogue attack. 10 years ago, a night much like this one, cold and clear, the moon watching. Her parents had been found in the forest, throats torn, bodies cooling. The official report said rogues, random violence, tragic but unavoidable. Arya had been 13, alone, orphaned. The pack took her in, charity they called it. Beta Garrick Thornfield had personally overseen her placement. You'll earn your keep, he had told her. Your parents' knowledge died with them, but you can still be useful. She became an apprentice, the lowest rank in the healing ward. And then 3 years ago, the morning tonic began. Elder Rowan had prepared it himself, or so Garrick claimed, a special blend to strengthen young healers, to enhance their connection to the natural world. 3 drops in her morning tea, every day, without fail. Arya had trusted him. Why wouldn't she? Garrick was Deputy Beta, a respected wolf. He had no reason to hurt her. The first week, she felt nothing. The second week, a faint fatigue. By the 3rd week, her wolf had gone quiet. Not silent, she could still feel the presence in the back of her mind, but muted, distant, like hearing a voice through thick glass, she told Elder Rowan. He frowned, adjusted the formula, increased the dosage to 5 drops. For your own good, he said, your wolf is unstable. We must keep her calm until you're older. 3 years, 1,095 days, 5 drops every morning. Her wolf had not spoken in 3 years. Arya adjusted the strap of her medicine bag and tried to ignore the hollow ache in her chest where her wolf should have been. Around her, the clearing buzzed with excitement. Young females preened and postured. Males stood straighter, chests puffed. Everyone watching the eastern path, waiting for him, waiting for the Alpha King. Then the air changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in pressure like the moment before lightning strikes. Conversations faltered, shoulders straightened. Every wolf in the clearing turned toward the eastern path as one. Power had arrived. Theron Ashwood stepped into the torchlight like a storm given human form. He was massive. 6 feet 5 inches of solid muscle shoulders, broad enough to block out the moon. His black ceremonial coat fit him like armor, the silver embroidery along the collar and cuffs marking him as Alpha bloodline. 7th generation. Pure. But it was not his size that made wolves instinctively lower their gazes. It was his presence. The Ashen King, they called him. Theron Ashwood, undefeated in 52 battles, 29 years old and already legendary. He had crushed rebellions in the Northern Territories, negotiated peace treaties that had held for a decade, expanded Crescent Moon's borders until they stretched from the Bitterroot Mountains to the Yellowstone Basin. His hair was black as coal, cut short and practical. His face could have been carved from granite-sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, a mouth that rarely smiled. A scar ran from his right temple down to his collarbone, a thick white line that crossed his cheek and disappeared beneath his collar. A gift from a silver blade 3 years ago. The wolf who gave it to him had not lived to see dawn. But his eyes. His eyes were what made even the bravest wolves take a step back. Golden. Not the warm gold of honey or sunset, the cold, burning gold of a predator's stare. Eyes that missed nothing, eyes that had watched men beg for mercy and shown none. Theron walked to the center of the clearing, each step measured and controlled. The crowd parted like water. He did not acknowledge them, did not nod or smile or offer any gesture of warmth. And Alpha King did not need to seek approval. He stopped at the stone platform, turned, surveyed the gathering with those terrible golden eyes. And Arya's entire world tilted. The scent hit her first. Every wolf had a scent, a unique signature as individual as a fingerprint. Most were pleasant pine and earth vanilla and smoked leather and snow. Arya had learned to identify pack members by scent alone, a necessary skill for a healer who often worked in dim light. But this was not just a scent. This was an awakening, rain, fresh and clean like the first storm after a long drought. The kind of rain that washes the world new, that makes the earth smell rich and alive. And beneath it something deeper. Cedar, ancient and strong. The smell of old-growth forest where sunlight barely touches the ground. It filled her lungs, flooded her senses, made her dizzy. And in the hollow place where her wolf had been silent for 3 years, something stirred. Not a whisper, a roar. Mate. The word exploded through her consciousness like thunder. Not her thought, her wolf's. Her wolf, who had not spoken in 1,095 days, suddenly screaming with a clarity that made Arya's knees buckle. Mate, ours, mine, no. No, 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 no. Arya's hands shot out, gripping the wooden pillar for support. Her vision swam, her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Every nerve in her body had suddenly come alive, singing with awareness, pulling her toward the center of the clearing. Toward him. This could not be happening. Not to her. Not with him. Alpha Kings did not bond with healers' daughters. They bonded with females of status. Daughters of elders. Alphas from allied packs. Wolves with bloodlines as pure and powerful as their own. Not orphaned apprentices who could barely afford new boots. Not girls who smelled permanently of medicinal herbs and wore undyed linen because colored fabric cost too much. Not wolves who had been broken and suppressed for 3 years. Arya tried to step back, to hide deeper in the shadows, to disappear before this impossible thing became real. But across the clearing, Theron Ashwood went completely still. His head turned, slowly, precisely, like a predator who had just caught the scent of prey. His golden eyes locked onto hers, and the bond snapped into place. It was not gentle, not the soft romantic connection described in the old stories. This was violent, a collision of souls, lightning striking in reverse, starting in her chest and exploding outward through every vein, every nerve, every cell. Gold light blazed behind her eyes. The world disappeared. There was only the bond, only the pull. Only the absolute undeniable certainty that this male, this powerful, dangerous, untouchable male was hers, and she was his. The physical world returned in fragments. Sound first, the crackling of torches, the whisper of wind through pine. Then sight, the clearing, the wolves, the moon. And finally, devastating awareness. Theron was staring at her, not looking, staring. Those golden eyes locked on her face with an intensity that made her want to run and submit in equal measure. She watched his nostrils flare, watched his pupils dilate, watched his massive chest rise and fall with a breath that looked almost painful. He felt it too. The murmur started immediately, low at first, then rising. Who is that? The healer girl, Rowan's apprentice, Arya Vale, the orphan. That's impossible. Did you see his face? The Alpha King and a low-rank healer, Arya forced herself to breathe, in through her nose, out through her mouth. Her healer's training taking over when everything else failed. Assess the situation. Identify the problem. Choose a course of action. The problem was standing in the center of the clearing, staring at her like she was a puzzle he could not solve. The course of action was obvious. Inevitable. He would reject her. Of course he would. What else could he do? An Alpha King's mate became Luna. She stood beside him at every council meeting. She represented the pack to allied territories. She needed to be strong, confident, politically savvy. Arya was none of those things. She was a healer's apprentice who had not spoken to her own wolf in 3 years, who flinched when voices rose, who still had nightmares about the night her parents died. She was not Luna material. Everyone in this clearing knew it, including Theron Ashwood. She watched the conflict play across his face. It lasted only seconds. His control was too good for more, but she saw it. Shock, confusion, want. And then finally decision. His expression smoothed, became the granite mask he always wore, cold, untouchable, final. He looked away from her, turned to face the crowd. When he spoke, his voice carried across the clearing with absolute authority. Tonight was meant for choosing, each word precisely delivered. No emotion, pure control. The moon goddess has made her will known. Hope flickered in Arya's chest. Painful and foolish, but there. Maybe. Maybe he would. I reject the bond. The hope died. The female the goddess has offered is not suitable for the role of Luna. Theron's voice did not waver, did not soften. He might have been discussing border patrols or supply logistics. I reject Arya Vale as my mate. I reject the bond between us. I choose duty over fate. Gasps erupted across the clearing. Shock, excitement, disbelief. Somewhere to her left, a female laughed, high and cruel. Arya felt the bond protest, felt it writhe in her chest like a living thing trying to hold on. Pain bloomed behind her sternum. Sharp, suffocating, the kind of pain that had no visible wound. But she had learned long ago how to hide pain. She straightened slowly, shifted the medicine bag on her shoulder, lifted her chin just enough to meet his gaze across the distance, and said, voice steady and soft, I understand, Alpha. The clearing went silent. This was not how rejections worked. How the rejected wolf was supposed to collapse, to beg, to plead for reconsideration, to make a scene that justified the rejection in the first place. Arya did none of those things. She simply bowed her head, a gesture of respect, of acceptance, of dignity that should have been impossible under the circumstances. Thank you for your honesty, she said. Her voice carried clearly in the sudden stillness. I hope you find a mate worthy of you. Then she turned and she walked away. Not ran, not stumbled. Walked. Slow and measured, her healer's training, keeping her spine straight and her steps even. One step, two, three. The bond was screaming now, tearing, trying to hold together something that had been severed before it even had a chance to form. Every step away from him felt like walking through broken glass. 4 steps, 5, 6. Behind her she heard it, a sound she had never heard before in 3 years of living in this pack. Theron Ashwood growled. Not a warning growl, not the controlled rumble of an alpha asserting dominance. This was feral, raw, the sound of a wolf losing control. Stop! The command cracked across the clearing like a whip. The single word carried so much alpha authority that every wolf present froze instantly. Wolves who had been whispering fell silent. Wolves who had been moving went rigid. Even the wind seemed to pause. Arya stopped. She did not want to. Her mind screamed at her to keep walking to get away before this got worse. But her body would not obey. The alpha command had locked her muscles in place. She turned, slowly, because she had no choice. Theron stood in the center of the clearing, and he looked nothing like the controlled, untouchable king from moments before. His eyes blazed pure gold, not just the iris, the entire eye glowing with an inner fire. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, and she could see claws beginning to emerge from his fingertips. His chest heaved, every muscle in his body was tensed like he was physically restraining himself from shifting. The air around him shimmered with power. Raw, uncontrolled, dangerous. For the first time since her wolf had gone silent, Arya felt her stirring again. Not screaming this time, whimpering. He is breaking, her wolf whispered, losing control. Who? Theron said, his voice rough and layered with his wolf's growl, gave you permission to walk away from me. The clearing held its breath. Arya met his burning gaze, felt the broken bond pulsing between them like an open wound, felt 300 pairs of eyes on her back, and said quietly but clearly, you did, Alpha. The words landed like a blade. Theron flinched, actually flinched, as if she had struck him. His control wavered visibly. His wolf surged so close to the surface that his skin seemed to ripple fur trying to emerge. For 5 heartbeats, no one moved. No one breathed. Then Elder Rowan stepped forward from the crowd. He was 68 years old, silver-haired and slight, with the permanent stoop of someone who had spent a lifetime bending over healing work. But his eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Alpha. His voice cut through the tension. Something is wrong. Theron did not look at him, could not seem to tear his gaze away from Arya. Explain. A rejected bond should fade within moments. Rowan moved closer to the platform, his healer's instincts overriding any fear of the Alpha's current state. It should cause pain to the rejected party, yes, but it should not cause pain to the one who rejected, and it certainly should not cause this. He gestured to Theron, to the power radiating off him in visible waves, to the loss of control that should have been impossible for a wolf of his strength. The bond has not broken, Rowan said, each word careful, measured. In fact, it appears to be intensifying. More gasps, more whispers. This was not natural, not normal. Bonds did not work this way. Rowan turned to Arya, approached her slowly the way one might approach a spooked horse. "May I?" Arya nodded. She did not trust her voice. The old healer's fingers were gentle as he pulled aside the collar of her robe. She heard his sharp intake of breath, heard the murmur that rippled through the wolves close enough to see. "What is it?" Theron's growl had not diminished. If anything, it had grown more pronounced, more desperate. Rowan's hand shook slightly as he traced something on Arya's collarbone. She could not see it, but she could feel it, a warmth that had not been there before, a tingling like electricity dancing across her skin. "This," Rowan said, his voice hushed with something that might have been awe or fear, "is not a healer's mark." He turned to face the crowd, face Theron, his expression grave. "This is the mark of the first wolves." Silence, complete and absolute. The first wolves, ancient bloodline, rulers from before the kingdoms were formed, before packs had territories, before the world had been divided into neat hierarchies. The original wolves, the purest line, the source of all werewolf magic. A bloodline that had vanished 500 years ago. "Impossible," someone whispered. "The first wolves are extinct," another voice said. "Everyone knows that." But Rowan was shaking his head. "The mark does not lie. Look at it. Silver, not gold. Ancient runes, not pack symbols. This is first wolf heritage. Undeniable." Arya's mind reeled. First wolf her. But her parents had been healers. Respected, yes, but not nobility. Not ancient bloodline. Just skilled wolves who had dedicated their lives to helping others. Unless that was why they died. The thought hit her like a physical blow. Her parents killed 10 years ago. Rogue attack, they said. Random violence. What if it was not random? What if someone had known, had wanted to eliminate the bloodline before it could awaken? Her knees buckled. She would have fallen, but suddenly there was a hand on her elbow. Strong, steady. She looked up into golden eyes. Theron had moved without her noticing. Now stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his body, could smell rain and cedar overwhelming everything else. "Isa," he said, his voice still rough, still layered with his wolf, but quieter now, almost gentle. "I have you." The bond flared. Even broken, even rejected, it recognized the touch, screamed with relief and agony in equal measure. Arya gasped. Pain lanced through her chest so sharp she could not breathe. Theron's grip tightened. "Rowan, now." The old healer was already moving. He pressed his fingers to Arya's wrist, checking her pulse. Frowned. "Her heart is racing, and her scent." He leaned closer, inhaled. His frown deepened. "There is something else, something medicinal. Wrong." "What do you mean wrong?" "I need to examine her properly, in the healing ward, with proper light and tools." Theron did not hesitate. He swept Arya up into his arms like she weighed nothing. The bond shrieked. Being held by him was exquisite torture. Every point of contact between their bodies sent sparks of sensation racing across her skin. Her wolf, silent for so long, was suddenly howling. Not words, just sound, pure anguished longing. "The ceremony is over," Theron announced to the clearing. His voice had regained its authority, though his eyes still burned gold. "Everyone return to your homes." "But Alpha," someone started. "Now." The single word carried enough power to make several wolves drop to their knees. No one argued further. Theron carried Arya toward the eastern path. She should have protested, should have insisted she could walk, but she was shaking too hard. The pain in her chest where the bond had tried to form was spreading, radiating outward until every breath hurt. "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it, barely a whisper against his shoulder. Theron's arms tightened around her. "Why what? Why do you care? You rejected me." His jaw clenched. She watched the muscle jump beneath his skin. For a long moment he said nothing, just carried her through the forest, his steps sure even in the darkness. Finally, "I made a choice. I am trying to understand if it was the right one." That was not an answer, but it was all she was going to get. They reached the healing ward, a long, low building on the northern edge of the pack village. Elder Rowan was already there, having moved with surprising speed for his age. He had lit every lamp in the main examination room. The space glowed warm and golden, filled with the familiar scents of herbs and alcohol and clean linen. Theron set Arya down on the examination table with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his size. His hands lingered on her shoulders for a moment before he forced himself to step back. "I will be outside," he said, to Rowan, not to her. "Call me when you have answers." He left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Arya sagged. Without his presence, without the bond pulling at her, she could breathe a little easier. The pain had not faded, but it had dulled to something almost manageable. Rowan was already preparing instruments, pulling vials from shelves. His movements were quick and practiced, but Arya could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "Arya," he said softly, not looking at her, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that?" She nodded. "The morning tonic, the one Garrick has been giving you, how long have you been taking it?" 3 years, since I turned 20. Rowan's hand stilled on a vial. "Every day. Every morning, 5 drops in tea. You formulated it yourself," Garrick said, "to help stabilize my wolf." The old healer closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with something that looked like grief and rage. "I never formulated any such tonic." The words hung in the air. "What area?" Rowan turned to face her fully. "I am going to take a sample of your blood, and I am going to test it, but I already know what I will find." "I don't understand." "You have been poisoned, systematically, for 3 years." The room tilted. "No, that is not. Garrick would not." "Roll up your sleeve." Arya obeyed. Numbly, watched as Rowan tied a tourniquet around her upper arm, felt the prick of the needle, watched her blood fill the vial dark and thick. Rowan worked in silence, added reagents to the blood sample, waited. His expression grew darker with each passing second. Finally, he set down the vial, turned to her with eyes full of barely controlled fury. "Wolfsbane." One word, but it explained everything. Wolfsbane, the poison that weakened wolves, that suppressed their ability to shift, that in large doses killed. In small doses administered over time, it did something worse. It severed the connection between human and wolf, made the animal side go silent, made you half of what you were supposed to be. 3 to 5 drops per day, Rowan said, his voice shaking, for 3 years, carefully calibrated, enough to suppress your wolf completely, enough to keep you weak, but not enough to kill you outright. His hands clenched into fists. "Someone has been very carefully destroying you from the inside." Arya could not speak, could not think. 1,000 mornings, 5 drops of poison disguised as medicine delivered by a wolf she had trusted. "Who gave you the tonic each morning?" Rowan asked, though his tone said he already knew. "Garrick, he brought it to the healing ward, said you had prepared it the night before." "I have never prepared anything for you except standard medicinal remedies." Rowan's voice had gone cold. "Garrick Thornfield has been poisoning you under the guise of my authority." The door slammed open. Theron stood in the doorway. His eyes were still gold, still burning. He had clearly been listening through the wall, his wolf too close to the surface to care about propriety or privacy. "Say that again," he said, each word clipped, controlled through sheer force of will. Rowan met his gaze steadily. "Beta Garrick has been administering wolfsbane to Arya for 3 years. Small doses. Systematic. Deliberately designed to suppress her wolf and keep her weak." Theron went very, very still. It was the stillness of a predator before it struck. The stillness that meant someone was about to die. "Where is he?" "I do not." "Where is he?" The Alpha command exploded through the room. Lamps rattled, vials clinked together. Arya flinched despite herself. Rowan stood his ground. "I do not know, Alpha, but I suspect if you check his quarters, you will find evidence. Wolves who do this do not stop with one victim. There will be supplies, records, something." Theron was moving before the old healer finished speaking. He paused only at the door, looked back at Arya. Something flickered in those burning eyes. Regret, rage, guilt. "I failed you," he said, raw, unguarded. "I saw signs. I ignored them. I will not make that mistake again." Then he was gone. She heard his footsteps pounding down the corridor, heard the distant sound of his roar echoing through the packed village. The Ashen King had gone to war, and the enemy was within his own borders. Arya sat alone in the healing ward as dawn crept through the eastern windows. Elder Rowan had left an hour ago. He needed to gather the council, he said. Needed to present the evidence before Theron did something irreversible. Needed to ensure this was handled through proper channels, not alpha rage. But Arya knew better. She had heard the roar that echoed through the Pack village when Theron found whatever he found in Garrick's quarters. Had felt the tremor in the earth when power exploded somewhere to the south. Had smelled smoke on the wind. Proper channels were already burning. She pressed her hand against her collarbone, feeling the mark beneath her skin. It was warm, pulsing faintly with each heartbeat. Silver light bled through her fingers when she looked down, visible even in the growing daylight. First wolf, the words still felt impossible. Her parents had never mentioned anything about ancient bloodlines. They had been healers, good wolves who served their pack and asked for nothing in return. They had taught her which plants stopped infection, how to set broken bones, the proper way to clean a wound so it healed without scarring. They had never taught her how to be royalty. The door opened softly. Arya's head snapped up, expecting Rowan. But the figure that entered was not the old healer. Theron Ashwood stood in the doorway, and he looked like he had walked through fire. His black ceremonial coat was gone. He wore only dark pants and a white shirt now stained with soot and blood. Not his blood, she could tell by the scent. His hands were raw knuckles split and bleeding. His hair was disheveled. And his eyes, those terrible golden eyes, had not returned to normal. They still burned with inner fire, still glowed with a light that was not entirely human. He looked at her for a long moment, then closed the door behind him with deliberate care, crossed the room in 3 long strides, and dropped to one knee in front of her. Arya froze. An Alpha King did not kneel. Not for anyone. Not ever. "I found the evidence," Theron said. His voice was rough, abraded, like he had been screaming. "In Garrick's quarters, 3 years' worth of supply records. Wolfsbane purchased from a rogue dealer in the Northern Territories. Detailed logs of dosage and administration, and," his jaw clenched, "and a contract, dated 10 years ago, payment for the assassination of 2 healers. Your parents." The words hit like physical blows. Arya's breath stopped. The world narrowed to the male kneeling in front of her, to the confession falling from his lips like poison. "Garrick killed them," Theron continued, each word precise, deliberate. "He was hired by someone outside our territory, someone who knew what your bloodline meant, who wanted it eliminated before it could awaken." His hands, bloody and raw, clenched into fists on his thighs. "And for 3 years after that, he poisoned you, kept you weak, kept your wolf silent. Oh, he stopped, looked away. The muscle in his jaw jumped. "While you what?" Arya's voice came out barely above a whisper. "While I watched." The words sounded like they were being torn from him. 17 times in 3 years I saw you struggling. Saw you carrying medicinal supplies too heavy for your frame. Saw you flinch when he raised his voice. Saw the way you moved slower each month, the hollowness in your eyes." His hands unclenched, reached toward her, then stopped halfway, like he did not trust himself to touch her. "My wolf knew, from the first moment. But I have a shadow curse. A poison in my blood from a rogue attack 3 years ago. It makes my wolf unstable, violent. I lose control more with each passing month." Arya stared at him. "You were protecting me, from yourself." "I was protecting myself," Theron corrected. "From the pain of watching you die when my wolf finally broke free and killed you." His eyes closed. "I was a coward. I chose distance over honesty, and you suffered for it." The bond pulsed between them, still broken, still rejected, but straining against the severance like a living thing refusing to die. "Where is Garrick now?" Arya asked. "In the cells. Silver chains. Under guard." Theron's eyes opened, and they were cold now. Controlled. The Ashen King returning. "The council will convene at noon. Public trial. You will decide his fate. Me. You are the victim. The choice of punishment is yours by pack law." He paused. "And you are first wolf, which means you outrank everyone in this territory, including me." The words hung in the air between them. Arya shook her head. "I do not understand what that means. First wolf, my parents never... They were protecting you." Rowan's voice came from the doorway. The old healer entered carrying a leather-bound book, ancient and worn. "Your mother made me swear before she died never to speak of your heritage. She knew someone was hunting your bloodline. Knew that knowledge would make you a target." He set the book on the table beside Arya. Opened it carefully, the spine cracking with age. The pages were covered in elegant script, the ink faded to brown. "The first wolves were not just the original werewolves," Rowan explained. "They were rulers, leaders chosen by the moon goddess herself to guide and unite the packs. Every 500 years one is born, marked from birth with silver instead of gold. Destined to either bring peace or destruction." He pointed to a passage. Arya leaned in closer, reading words written centuries ago. When the moonbound rises, she shall call to her three guardians, alphas of strength, wisdom, and shadow. They shall be bound to her through fate's design, their souls tethered to her throne. Only when all three bonds are sealed can she claim her full power. Only then can she choose unite the kingdoms or watch them burn. Three guardians, Arya whispered. The bond multiplied. That is why it did not break when Theron rejected me. Well, precisely. Rowan turned the page. A normal mate bond forms between two wolves. But a moonbound bond is different. It does not seek a partner. It seeks protectors. When the first alpha rejects the bond instead of breaking it, activates, opens the way for the second and third. Theron had gone very still. You are saying there will be two more. Two more who feel the bond, yes. Rowan met his gaze steadily. Whether she accepts them is her choice, but the bond will call to them. And they will come. As if summoned by the words a howl split the morning air, it came from the northern border. Deep, resonant, carrying power that made every wolf in the village freeze and turn. Not a challenge howl, a declaration. I am here. Theron was on his feet instantly. That is not one of ours. No, Rowan agreed quietly. It is not. The howl came again, closer now, and this time Arya felt it. A pull deep in her chest next to where Theron's bond pulsed. A second thread forming, silver where Theron's had been gold. Her wolf stirred, for the first time in 3 years truly stirred. Not screaming, curious. Another, the wolf whispered. Guardian comes. Stay here, Theron commanded, already moving toward the door. I will handle, no. The words stopped him. He turned slowly, his expression dangerous. Arya? No, she repeated, stronger this time. She slid off the examination table, her legs shaky but holding. If another alpha is coming for me, I will face him, not hide while you fight my battles. You are weak from 3 years of poison. You can barely stand. Then I will sit, but I will be there. She met his burning gaze without flinching. You rejected me, Alpha. You do not get to command me. Something flickered in his eyes, pride maybe, or pain, possibly both. You are right, he said quietly. I do not. He held out his hand. But I would ask, please, let me stand with you. Arya looked at his hand, at the split knuckles and bloodstains, at the slight tremor he was trying to hide. This male who had rejected her, who had failed her, who was still clearly fighting his wolf's need to claim her. She took his hand. The spark was immediate, electric. The broken bond flared, recognizing the touch, trying desperately to mend itself. They both gasped. Theron's fingers tightened on hers, his eyes flashing pure gold. It hurts, Arya breathed. Yes, Theron agreed. But I will endure it. For you. They walked together through the pack village. Dawn had fully broken now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Wolves emerged from their homes, drawn by the howls, by the scent of power on the wind, by the sight of their alpha king, walking hand in hand with the healer's daughter. Whispers followed them. Speculation, fear, excitement. The northern border was a 10-minute walk from the village center. A natural clearing where the dense pine forest opened up, marked by ancient standing stones that predated the pack itself. Territory markers, sacred ground. Theron's warriors were already there. 20 of them formed in a defensive line, weapons drawn. But they had not attacked, had not even issued a challenge, because the male standing at the border was not attacking either. He simply waited. Draven Blackthorn was impossible to miss. 6 feet 4 inches of lean muscle, dressed in dark leather armor, marked with crimson sigils. His hair was silver white, unusual for a wolf his age, falling to his shoulders in a straight curtain. A scar cut across his jaw, white against tan skin. And his eyes. His eyes were the same burning gold as Theron's. But where Theron's gaze was ice and control, Draven's was fire and chaos. He smiled when he saw Arya. A slow, predatory smile that should have been terrifying. There you are, he said. His voice was smooth, dark honey over gravel. I have been searching for 3 years. Saw you in dreams, in visions. Every full moon, the moon goddess showed me your face and told me to find you. He took a step forward. Theron's warriors tensed, but Draven ignored them. His gaze was locked on Arya. I am Draven Blackthorn, king of the Shadow Dominion, ruler of the Northern Territories, commander of 300 wolves. Another step. And you beautiful creature are my mate. The bond snapped. It was different from Theron's. Where Theron's bond had been lightning and gold, Draven's was shadow and silver. It wrapped around her like smoke, cool and dark, sinking into her skin. Not painful, not overwhelming, just there. Undeniable. Arya's wolf purred. Shadow the wolf said, "Yes." Theron's hand tightened on hers. A low growl built in his chest. "She is already claimed. You rejected her." Draven's eyes flickered to their joined hands. "I felt it. Last night. The bond formed and broke in the same moment. You had your chance, Ashwood. You threw it away." "The bond did not break." "No," Draven agreed, "because she is moonbound. She does not bond to one alpha, she bonds to three." He looked back at Arya, and his expression softened slightly. "I know what you are. I have studied the prophecies for years. I know you need three guardians to claim your full power." He placed his hand over his heart. "I offer myself, freely, no rejection, no hesitation." Arya found her voice. "You do not know me. I know you have been poisoned for 3 years and still stand. I know you faced public rejection with dignity. I know your scent is rain and honeysuckle, and it haunts every dream I have had since the last full moon." His smile turned gentle. "I know enough." A third presence made itself known. This one did not howl. Did not announce itself with power or drama. It simply arrived. 200 wolves emerged from the forest to the east. Not warriors, soldiers. The difference was clear in their movement. Synchronized, disciplined, perfect formation. Silver armor caught the morning light, making them look like they had been forged from metal rather than born from flesh. At their center, a single figure walked forward. Emperor Lucian Stormcrown looked nothing like the other two alphas. Where Theron was raw power and Draven was wild chaos, Lucian was precision incarnate. 6 feet 3 inches, military-bearing, white gold hair, cut short and practical. His eyes were not gold, but gray steel-colored and sharp as blades. He wore silver armor marked with his empire's crest, a crescent moon pierced by a sword. Every movement was controlled, economical, not a single wasted gesture. He stopped exactly 10 feet from where Arya stood between Theron and the border. His gaze swept over her once, thorough, assessing. Then he bowed, a precise 30-degree angle held for exactly 3 seconds. When he straightened, he spoke. His voice was cool, measured, absolute. "Arya Vale, last heir of the first wolf bloodline. I am Lucian Stormcrown, Emperor of the Silver-Fang Territories, commander of 800 soldiers, keeper of the Eastern Kingdoms." He paused. "I have come to offer my service as your third guardian." The bond formed. This one was different again. Not lightning like Theron's, not shadow like Draven's. This was steel and starlight, cold and precise. It settled over her like armor, protective and unyielding. Arya's wolf sat down inside her mind, looked at the 3 threads now woven through their shared soul. Considered. 3, the wolf said, simply, "Pack." "This is insane," Arya said out loud. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "You are 3 of the most powerful alphas on the continent. You cannot all this does not I am nobody." "You are first wolf," Lucian corrected, "which makes you the highest-ranking wolf alive. Technically, we should all be kneeling." "Please do not." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "As you wish." Theron stepped forward, placing himself partially between Arya and the other 2 males. His aura expanded, a clear territorial display. "She has been poisoned for 3 years. She is weak, vulnerable. This is not the time for, which is exactly why we are here," Draven's voice cut through. "She needs protection. 3 guardians, remember, you cannot protect her alone, Ashwood. Not when you are fighting your own shadow curse. Not when you have a pack to run and borders to defend." "He is correct," Lucian added. "The prophecy exists for a reason. One alpha cannot shoulder the burden of protecting the moonbound. It requires 3, strength, shadow, and strategy." He gestured to each of them in turn. "We are what she needs." "I have not agreed to any of this," Arya interjected. "You are discussing me like I am not standing right here." All 3 alphas turned to her. 3 sets of eyes, 1 ice, 1 fire, 1 steel. "You are right," Theron said quietly. "I apologize." Draven inclined his head. "Forgive me." Lucian's almost smile returned. "Old habits." Arya took a breath, then another. The 3 bonds pulsed in her chest, 3 distinct signatures, 3 different flavors of power, and beneath them all her wolf, awake, alert, stronger than she had felt in 3 years. "I need time," she said finally, "to think, to understand what this means." She swayed suddenly, the adrenaline that had been holding her upright finally fading, the exhaustion of 3 years of poison crashing down all at once. Theron caught her before she fell. But Draven was there a heartbeat later, steadying her other side. And Lucian moved to block the view from the gathered crowd, giving her privacy in her weakness. 3 alphas, moving in perfect synchronization without a word exchanged. She needs rest. Rowan's voice cut through. The old healer had followed them, carrying his medical bag. And treatment. The wolfsbane is still in her system. It will take weeks to fully purge. Take her to the healing ward, Theron ordered. But he was looking at Arya when he said it, asking permission. She nodded. They carried her back together. It should have been awkward. Should have been a territorial nightmare. 3 dominant alphas all bonded to the same female forced to cooperate. But somehow it worked. Theron held her weight. Draven cleared the path ahead, his presence making wolves scatter. Lucian guarded their backs, his soldiers forming a protective perimeter. By the time they reached the healing ward, half the pack had gathered to watch. Silent, awed, terrified. The moonbound queen had risen, and she had called her 3 guardians. Inside the healing ward, Rowan immediately began preparations, mixing tinctures, preparing IV lines, muttering about foolish alphas and exhausted patients. Arya lay on the examination table, her strength completely spent. The 3 alphas stood against the walls as far from each other as the small room allowed, watching her with varying degrees of intensity. You cannot all stay, Rowan said without looking up. She needs rest, not an audience. None of them moved. I am serious. Out. All of you. No. 3 voices. Perfect unison. Rowan sighed, clearly deciding this was a battle not worth fighting. He approached Arya with a syringe. This will help flush the wolfsbane from your system. It will not be pleasant. The poison has been in your blood for 3 years. Purging it will feel like fire in your veins. Do it, Arya said. The injection was quick. For the first few seconds, she felt nothing. Then the heat began. It started in her arm where the needle had entered, spread outward. Within 30 seconds, her entire body was burning. She gasped, tried to stay still, tried to breathe through it, failed. A scream tore from her throat. 3 alphas moved simultaneously. Theron grabbed her hand. Draven touched her shoulder. Lucian placed his palm over her heart. And the moment they made contact, something shifted. The bonds flared. Gold, silver, white light erupted from Arya's skin, spreading to where the alphas touched her. The fire in her veins did not diminish, but it became bearable. Shared somehow, divided among 4 instead of carried by 1. Fascinating, Rowan murmured. The bonds are distributing the pain. I have never seen keep touching her. Do not let go. They did not. For 20 minutes, Arya burned, sweated, shook. And for 20 minutes, 3 of the most powerful alphas on the continent held her and endured the echo of her agony without complaint. Finally, the fire faded. Arya's breathing slowed, her body relaxed. And in the hollow place where her wolf had been silent for 3 years, she felt something new. Strength. Her wolf stood, stretched, looked around at the 3 threads binding them to the alphas, and for the first time in 1,095 days spoke clearly. Ours, the wolf said. Pack, protect, keep. Arya's eyes opened. The silver mark on her collarbone was glowing faintly visible through her robe, and when she looked at the 3 alphas surrounding her, she saw them differently now. Not strangers, not threats, not even potential mates. Guardians. Noon, she said. Her voice was hoarse but steady. You said the trial is at noon. Theron nodded. Public gathering. The entire pack will attend. You will pass judgment on Garrick. Good, Arya sat up slowly. The alphas' hands fell away, though none of them stepped back. Then I need to prepare, because I am not just going to judge Garrick Thornfield. She met each of their gazes in turn. I'm going to show this pack exactly what happens when you try to destroy a first wolf. Draven's smile was all teeth. Now that I want to see. Lucian's expression remained neutral, but his eyes gleamed. Strategy. Good. Theron simply nodded. What do you need? Answers. Arya looked at Rowan. Tell me everything about the first wolves. Everything my mother should have taught me. I have... She glanced at the window, calculating the sun's position. 4 hours to learn what I should have known my entire life. The old healer's eyes crinkled. Finally, a student who wants to learn. He pulled out the ancient book again. Then let us begin. As Rowan started reading, as the words of prophecy and power filled the small healing ward, Arya felt the 3 bonds settling into place, becoming part of her, accepting what she had not yet chosen to accept. 3 guardians, 3 threads, 3 alphas who had crossed territories and defied logic to stand beside her. She had not asked for this, had not wanted it, had spent 3 years just trying to survive each day. But survival was over. Now came something far more dangerous. Now came destiny. The noon sun blazed overhead as 500 wolves gathered in the ceremonial clearing. This was not the elegant gathering of the previous night. No torches, no silk dresses, no pretense of celebration. This was a trial. Ancient pack law demanded witnesses, demanded that justice be seen, not hidden behind closed doors. They came from every corner of Crescent Moon territory, farmers and warriors, healers and hunters, elders and younglings. They formed a wide circle around the stone platform, leaving a corridor down the center, waiting. Arya stood in the healing ward, looking at her reflection in the small mirror Rowan had provided. She barely recognized herself. 4 hours ago, she had been a broken apprentice, weak, poisoned, half alive. Now, after Rowan's treatment and 4 hours of intensive education about her bloodline, something had shifted. Her eyes were different, still blue but with a silver sheen that caught the light. The mark on her collarbone glowed faintly beneath the white ceremonial robe Rowan had found for her simple linen, but embroidered with silver thread and patterns that matched the ancient runes on her skin. Her hair, usually tied back in a practical braid, hung loose over her shoulders. Rowan had insisted. First wolves do not hide, he had said. They face their enemies directly. She looked like someone who mattered. The thought was terrifying. It is time, Rowan said softly from the doorway. Arya turned. The old healer watched her with something that might have been pride, or sorrow, perhaps both. I am not ready for this, she admitted. No one ever is. Rowan crossed the room, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. But you are stronger than you know. Your mother was the same. She doubted herself right up until the moment she saved an entire pack from plague. Then she simply did what needed to be done. He squeezed lightly. You are her daughter. You will do what needs to be done. A knock on the door. Theron entered first. He had bathed and changed since the morning. Now wore black formal attire, the silver embroidery at his collar, marking him as AlphaKing. His eyes were still gold, still burning, but controlled. The Ashen King once more. Behind him came Draven. He had eschewed formal clothing entirely. Still wore his dark leather armor, his silver hair loose, his scarred face set in an expression of casual danger. He looked like he had walked out of a battlefield and into a courtroom without bothering to notice the difference. Lucian entered last. Perfect silver armor polished to mirror brightness. White cloak fastened at his shoulders with a crescent moon clasp. Every inch the Emperor, precise, controlled, unreadable. 3 alphas, 3 different approaches to power, all watching her with the same intensity. The pack is assembled, Theron said. Garrick is in silver chains. The council has heard the evidence. All that remains is your judgment. How does this work? Arya asked. I have never attended a trial. You will sit on the platform, Lucian explained. His voice was clinical, instructional. The accused will be brought before you. Charges will be read, evidence presented, then you will pass sentence. He paused. As first wolf, your word is final. Not even the council can override your judgment. What are my options? Death, exile, imprisonment, service. Draven's smile was sharp. Or if you are feeling creative, something more memorable. And if I show weakness, if I hesitate, then wolves will see you as weak, Lucian said bluntly. They will question your right to judge, question whether you are truly first wolf or simply a healer's daughter with a convenient mark. His gray eyes held hers. First impressions matter, especially for queens. I am not a queen. Not yet, Draven agreed, but you will be. Might as well start acting like one. Theron moved closer, careful not to touch, but near enough that she could feel his warmth, smell rain and cedar. You do not have to do this alone. We will stand with you. Arya closed her eyes, felt the 3 bonds pulsing in her chest, felt her wolf awake and alert pacing in her mind, felt the silver mark burning against her skin. She opened her eyes. All right, she said, let us begin. They walked to the clearing together. Arya in the center, flanked by 3 alphas who drew stares and whispers wherever they went. Rowan followed behind carrying the ancient book of First Wolf Law. The crowd parted silently as they approached. 500 pairs of eyes tracked their progress. 500 wolves scenting the air, trying to understand what had changed, what was happening, why their Alpha King walked beside a healer's daughter like she was his equal. Arya kept her chin up, her spine straight, the way her mother had taught her when she was young. A healer stands tall, her mother had said, because people need to trust you with their lives. She had not understood then. She understood now. The stone platform loomed ahead, ancient, sacred, stained with the blood of 1,000 judgments over 1,000 years. Arya climbed the steps, alone. The three alphas remained at ground level, taking positions around the platform's base. Guarding, not leading. At the top, a simple stone chair waited. Arya sat. The stone was cold through her robe, but she did not flinch. The crowd settled. Silence fell like a weight. Elder Rowan stepped forward, his voice carrying across the clearing. We are gathered under the full witness of Pack and Sky to render justice. The accused Beta Garrick Thornfield. The crimes murder, attempted murder, treason, and fraud. He paused. The judge Arya Vale, last heir of the first wolf bloodline marked by the moon goddess herself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Shock, disbelief, a few gasps. Bring forth the accused. Two warriors dragged Garrick into the clearing. He looked nothing like the confident Beta who had ruled the Omega workers for 3 years. Silver chains wrapped around his wrists and ankles, burning his skin where they touched. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. His clothes were torn. Someone had already beaten him. Probably Theron. But Garrick's remaining eye found Arya on the platform, and hatred blazed in that gaze. Pure, unrepentant. You think you have won, he spat. Blood flecked his lips. You think that mark makes you special, makes you powerful. He laughed, the sound bitter and broken. You are still the same weak little girl who cried when I took away her morning tea. The crowd tensed, waited for Arya's reaction. She looked at him. This male who had murdered her parents, who had poisoned her for 3 years, who had stolen her wolf's voice and replaced it with silence, who had made her believe she was worthless. And she felt nothing. No rage, no hatred, not even satisfaction at seeing him in chains, just cold, clear understanding. You are right, she said. Her voice was soft but carried. I was weak, I was pathetic. I did cry when you poisoned me, though I did not know that was what you were doing. She walked to the edge of the platform, looked down at him. But I survived. That is what you never understood, Garrick. Weakness that survives becomes strength. And I survived you. She turned to address the crowd, 500 faces watching, waiting. 3 years ago, this male began adding wolfsbane to my morning tonic. Small doses, carefully measured. Just enough to silence my wolf. To keep me weak. She let the words sink in. He told me it was medicine. That Elder Rowan had prepared it for my own good. I trusted him. Why would I not? He was Beta. He had authority. Several wolves in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Guilt on their faces. They had seen. They had suspected. They had done nothing. But it was not medicine. It was poison. And it was not the first time he had used poison on my family. Arya's voice hardened. 10 years ago, Garrick Thornfield accepted payment to assassinate my parents. He arranged the rogue attack that killed them. He murdered 2 of the finest healers this pack has ever known, and he did it for money. Gasps, shouts, denial. Lies, Garrick roared. There is a contract, Lucian's voice cut through, cold, precise. He held up a piece of parchment. Found in his quarters this morning, signed and sealed. Payment of 5,000 silver for the elimination of 2 first wolf descendants. He turned the parchment so the crowd could see. Garrick Thornfield. Silence. Absolute and terrible. You did not do this alone, Arya said, looking back at Garrick. You worked for someone. Who hired you? Garrick smiled through his split lips. You will never know. Then you are worthless to me. Arya descended the platform steps, slowly, each footfall deliberate. The 3 alphas watched her approach. Garrick tensed to intervene if needed, but not moving, trusting her. She stopped directly in front of the chained male, close enough to smell the fear beneath his bravado. You tried to destroy me, she said quietly. You murdered my parents. You poisoned me for 3 years. You stole my wolf's voice. She leaned closer. But I am still here, still standing, still stronger than you ever wanted me to be. Garrick's sneer faltered. And now I am going to do something you never did, Arya continued. I am going to give you a choice. The crowd leaned forward, listening. Option 1, you tell me who hired you. You give me the name of the wolf who wanted my bloodline eliminated. You cooperate fully. Arya's voice was steady, clinical. In exchange, I will grant you a quick death, painless, respectful. You will be buried with pack honors. Garrick's eye widened slightly, hope flickering. Shintu, you refuse. You keep your silence. You protect whoever paid you. Arya straightened. And I will sentence you to exile. Rogue status? You will be cast out with nothing. No pack will shelter you. No territory will claim you. You will wander alone until you die alone, and your name will be spoken as a curse for generations. She stepped back. Choose. Garrick stared at her, calculation flickering across his battered face, weighing his options. Finally, he spat at her feet. I will tell you nothing. Whatever you do to me, it will be worth it, knowing you will never find them. They will come for you again. Arya nodded once, turned away. Then hear my judgment, she called to the crowd. Garrick Thornfield, you are found guilty of murder, attempted murder, treason and fraud. The evidence is overwhelming. She climbed back up the platform steps, stood at the top silhouetted against the noon sun. I sentence you to exile. Rogue status, effective immediately. The crowd erupted, some in approval, some in shock. Arya raised her hand. Silence fell again. But before you are cast out, you will provide one final service to this pack. She looked at Theron, nodded. The Alpha King stepped forward, drew a silver dagger from his belt. The blade gleamed in the sunlight. You will surrender your rank, Arya said. Beta Garrick Thornfield will become Rogue Garrick. No last name, no pack affiliation, no honor. She paused. And to ensure every wolf knows what you did, you will bear a mark. Theron moved with brutal efficiency. The silver blade sliced across Garrick's forehead, cutting a symbol into his flesh. An X, the mark of a traitor. It would scar silver against his skin. Permanent, visible, shameful. Garrick screamed. Let him go, Arya ordered. The warriors released the silver chains. They fell away clattering on stone. Garrick collapsed to his knees, hand pressed to his bleeding forehead. Run, Arya said, and pray to the moon goddess that I never see you again. Garrick staggered to his feet, looked at her one last time, then turned and ran, through the crowd which parted with disgust. Into the forest, gone. The silence that followed was heavy. Then from the back of the crowd someone began to howl, the traditional response to justice rendered. Others joined. Within seconds, 500 wolves were howling their approval. The sound echoed through the mountains, primal and ancient. Arya stood on the platform listening to the pack accept her judgment, accept her authority, accept what she had become. When the howling finally died down, another figure stepped forward from the crowd. Seraphine Winters. She wore a pale blue dress, her blonde hair elaborately styled. She had been beautiful once. Now she just looked desperate. What about me? Seraphine's voice shook. I did not kill anyone. I did not poison anyone. You held me down while Garrick poured silver nitrate on my hands, Arya said flatly. You locked me in the silver storage room for 8 hours. You burned me. You cut me. You made my life hell for 3 years because you thought it was entertaining. Seraphine's face crumbled. I am sorry. I did not know you were First Wolf. If I had known, you would have treated me differently. Arya's laugh was cold. That is the problem, Seraphine. You only regret your actions because of what I am, not because of what you did. She descended the platform again, approached the trembling female. You think rank determines worth. That low-born wolves deserve suffering. Seraphine dropped to her knees. Please, I will do anything. I will serve you. You will serve, Arya agreed. But not me. She turned to Elder Rowan. You need assistance in the healing ward. Yes, wolves, to clean instruments, prepare bandages, dispose of waste. Rowan's eyes gleamed with understanding. Indeed, it is difficult work, menial, exhausting. Perfect. Arya looked back at Seraphine. You will work in the healing ward, Omega rank. You will do every task no one else wants to do. You will clean blood and waste. You will scrub floors until your hands bleed. You will serve the very wolves you once looked down upon. She crouched down to Seraphine's level. And you will do it for 10 years. 1 year for every month you tormented me. If you refuse, if you complain, if you show even a hint of the cruelty you showed me, you will join Garrick in exile. Seraphine's face had gone white. 10 years, be grateful I'm not asking for 36. Arya stood. Do you accept? A long pause, then barely a whisper. Yes. I did not hear you. Yes. Seraphine's voice broke. I accept. I will serve. Good. Arya looked at Rowan. She starts tomorrow. The old healer bowed slightly. As you wish. Arya turned back to the crowd. 500 wolves watching, some with approval, some with fear, some with calculation. I did not ask for this, she said. I did not ask to be First Wolf. Did not ask for the mate bond to 3 alphas. Did not ask to stand here passing judgment. She paused. But I will not hide from what I am. I will not pretend to be weak to make others comfortable. And I will not tolerate cruelty in this pack. Not anymore. She looked at Theron. You are Alpha King. This is your territory. I am not trying to take that from you. Theron climbed the platform steps, stood beside her. You are not taking anything. You are claiming what is yours by birthright. He turned to the crowd. Arya Vale is first wolf. That rank supersedes even mine. From this moment forward, she stands as my equal in all pack matters. Her word carries the same weight as my own. Draven stepped onto the platform from the other side. Shadow Dominion recognizes the moonbound heir. My warriors are hers to command. Lucian joined them. Silver Fang Empire pledges loyalty. Our resources, our knowledge, our strength, all offered freely. 3 alphas, standing beside her. Not behind, not in front. Beside. Arya looked at them, at these males who had crossed territories to stand here, who had offered their loyalty before she had even accepted their bonds. I have not accepted the bonds, she said quietly. I have not agreed to be your whatever this is supposed to be. We know, Theron said. We do not care, Draven added. We will wait. As long as necessary, Lucian finished. Arya shook her head, but she could not quite hide her smile. Movement at the edge of the clearing caught her attention. A young wolf, barely 20 by her scent, pushed through the crowd. Her face was tear-stained, desperate. Please, the girl called. Please, I need help. My brother, he is sick. The healers say there is nothing they can do. But if you are really first wolf, if you really have power. Arya's healer instincts surged. What are his symptoms? Fever, cannot breathe properly, blood in his cough. The girl sobbed. They say it is silver poisoning, that he will die within days. Arya was moving before she made the conscious decision. Down the platform steps, across the clearing. Take me to him, now. The girl led her through the crowd at a run. Behind her, she heard the 3 alphas following. Heard Rowan gathering his medical supplies. But for Arya, this was not drama. This was purpose. She was a healer. Whatever else she might be, first wolf, moonbound, queen, judge, and executioner, she was a healer first. And someone needed healing. The girl led them to a small cottage on the eastern edge of the village. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of sickness and fear. A young male, the girl's brother, clearly lay on a narrow bed, his skin pale and clammy, his breathing shallow. Arya knelt beside him, pressed her fingers to his wrist. His pulse was thready, weak. How long has he been like this? 3 days, the girl whispered. He works in the silver mines. There was a collapse. He was trapped for hours breathing silver dust. Arya closed her eyes. Silver poisoning from inhalation was almost always fatal. The particles embedded in the lungs slowly burning from the inside. No amount of medicine could reach them. Unless. She looked at her hands, at the silver mark glowing faintly on her collarbone, at the 3 bonds pulsing in her chest. First wolves were not just rulers. They were healers. The original healers. Could she, everyone stand back, she said quietly. Rowan understood first. His eyes widened. Arya, you have never. I have to try. She placed both hands on the young male's chest, closed her eyes, reached deep inside herself past the bonds, past her wolf, to the silver core of power she had felt awakening all day. The mark on her collarbone blazed. Silver light erupted from her hands, flowing into the sick wolf. She felt his pain, felt the silver particles embedded in his lungs like tiny knives, felt his body trying desperately to fight poison it could not defeat. And she pulled. The silver answered her call, recognized its own kind. The particles moved, drawn by the light flowing out of damaged tissue and into her hands, into her blood, into the mark that burned like a star against her skin. The young male gasped, arched, then collapsed back onto the bed, breathing deeply for the first time in days. Arya pulled her hands away. The silver light faded. She swayed, suddenly exhausted, and felt 3 sets of hands steady her immediately. Impossible, Rowan breathed. You extracted the silver without surgery, without tools, just pure power. The young male opened his eyes, clear, focused. What happened? His sister sobbed and threw herself at him, hugging him desperately. Arya stepped back. Let the 3 alphas support her weight, watched as the siblings embraced, as life returned to a wolf who should have died. You saved him, Theron said quietly. I am a healer, Arya replied. It is what I do. No, Draven's voice was soft, almost reverent. You are the Moonbound, and you just showed 500 wolves exactly why the first wolves were chosen to rule. Arya looked at him, at all 3 of them, at the bonds connecting them, at the destiny she had not asked for but could no longer deny. I need to learn, she said, everything, how to use this power, how to be what you all think I am. She stopped. Started over. Help me. 3 alphas. 3 different smiles. Always, Theron said. Without question, Draven added. Until the end, Lucian finished. And for the first time since this impossible journey began, Arya let herself believe. Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could become who she was meant to be. Maybe she was not as alone as she had always thought. The attack came 3 days later. Arya was in the healing ward working with Elder Rowan to catalog the medicinal herbs when the alarm howls shattered the afternoon quiet. Not the structured warning calls of a border patrol. These were screams, in pain woven into sound. She was moving before her conscious mind caught up. Out the door across the village square, following the sounds of battle that grew louder with each step. Arya reached the clearing and stopped. Dead. 50 wolves in black armor swarmed through the defensive line. Not rogues. These moved with military precision, attacking in coordinated strikes. Their armor bore no pack insignia, but the fighters were clearly trained. Elite. And they were cutting through Theron's warriors like wheat before a scythe. She saw Theron immediately. In full wolf form, massive black as midnight eyes, blazing gold, he tore through 3 attackers with brutal efficiency. But more kept coming. For every enemy he killed, 2 more appeared from the forest. Draven fought 20 yards to the east, his silver wolf form wreathed in shadows that seemed to move independently, striking at enemies from impossible angles. Lucian's forces held the southern flank in perfect formation, their silver armor gleaming as they moved, as one unit's shields locked. But the attackers were not trying to break through. They were searching. Arya realized it the moment she saw one of the black-armored wolves veer away from combat, nose to the ground, tracking a scent. Her scent. They were hunting her. One of the black-armored wolves spotted her. Time slowed. The wolf shifted mid-run, becoming a massive male with dead eyes and a cruel smile. He drew a silver blade, the metal gleaming red in the afternoon light. Poisoned. He was 15 yards away. 10, 5. Arya's wolf surged forward. Shift, the wolf demanded. Now. Arya had never shifted. Not once in her 23 years. Her parents had died before teaching her. The poison had prevented it afterward. The attacker was 3 yards away. Instinct took over. Pain exploded through her body. Bones breaking, reshaping, reforming. Muscle tearing and knitting back together in new configurations. Skin rippling as fur erupted across every surface. She heard herself screaming. The sound distorted, deepening, becoming something between human and animal. The transformation should have taken 30 seconds. It took 3. And when it finished, silence fell across the battlefield. Arya stood on 4 legs and the world had changed. Colors were different, muted in some ways, sharper in others. Sounds amplified 100-fold. Scents became stories. But more than the sensory changes, she felt power. Her wolf was not the size of a normal female, not even close. She stood as tall as Theron's massive black wolf, maybe taller. And her fur was pure white, not cream, not silver, white like fresh snow, like moonlight given physical form. And across her pelt, silver runes glowed softly, the same ancient symbols that marked her collarbone in human form. The attacker who had been charging her had frozen mid-step. His eyes were wide, terrified. First wolf, he whispered. Then he ran, and all 50 attackers ran. They scattered into the forest like shadows fleeing the dawn, abandoning weapons and wounded alike. Within seconds, the clearing was empty, except for Theron's warriors and the 3 alphas. Theron shifted back to human form, walked toward her, slowly, hands raised. Arya, can you hear me? She nodded her massive white head, tried to speak. What came out was not words, but meaning somehow carried through the bond. Yes, I hear you. Your first shift, Theron said. His voice held something like awe. And you are magnificent. Draven had shifted back as well. They knew. They came specifically for her. Which means whoever hired Garrick knows she has awakened, Lucian added. He was examining one of the abandoned weapons. These are military-grade steel, forged in the Eastern Kingdoms. He looked up, his gray eyes sharp. Someone with considerable resources wants her dead. Arya tried to shift back to human form. Concentrated on her human shape, on 2 legs instead of 4, on skin instead of fur. Nothing happened. She tried again. Pushed harder. Felt panic beginning to rise. I cannot shift back. Theron was beside her in an instant, his hand on her massive white head. Easy. First shifts are always difficult. Your wolf is strong. She does not want to give up control yet. His voice was soothing. You need to convince her. Show her that being human does not mean being weak. Arya closed her eyes, reached deep inside to where her wolf paced and growled. We are strong in both forms, she told her wolf. We do not need to hide anymore. We can be whole. Her wolf resisted, then slowly, reluctantly agreed. The shift back was less painful, slower, more controlled. When it finished, Arya knelt on the ground naked and shaking her white hair falling around her like a curtain. Lucian was already there with a cloak. He draped it over her shoulders without looking. Well done. They will come again, Draven said. Now that they know she can shift, they will bring more wolves, better prepared. Then we prepare as well, Theron said. He helped Arya to her feet. But first we need answers. Who sent them? Why do they fear the first wolf so much they would risk open war? I know someone who might have information, Lucian said quietly, an old contact in the Eastern Territories, one of the few wolves who still remembers the prophecies in full. He looked at Arya, but reaching him will require traveling beyond the safety of packlands. Then we go together, Draven said immediately. Theron nodded. Agreed. Arya looked at the three of them, at these alphas who had pledged themselves to her protection. 3 days ago she had been alone, broken, poisoned. Now she stood surrounded by power and purpose and something that felt dangerously close to belonging. How long will the journey take, she asked. 2 days there, Lucian replied. 2 days back, perhaps 1 day to gather information. 5 days. Arya pulled the cloak tighter. Then we leave at dawn. They departed as the sun broke over the mountains. The journey was grueling. They moved fast, stopping only briefly for water and rest. Lucian led plotting the safest route. Draven ranged ahead scouting. Theron stayed close to Arya. On the second night they made camp. The warriors established a perimeter while the alphas built a fire. Arya sat close to the flames, exhaustion pulling at her bones. You are quiet, Draven observed. Thinking, Arya replied. About everything. 3 days ago I could not shift, could not use any real power. Now I am supposedly the most important wolf on the continent, and people are trying to kill me for it. Power always draws enemies, Lucian said. The question is whether you will let fear of those enemies stop you from claiming what is yours. I never said I wanted it. Want is irrelevant. Lucian looked up. You are first wolf. That is not a choice. It is a fact. The only choice you have is whether to hide from it or embrace it. Theron settled beside her. You do not have to decide tonight or tomorrow. His voice was low. We will wait, as long as you need. Why? The question escaped. Why do any of you care? You have kingdoms to rule. You do not need this. The three alphas exchanged glances. Finally, Theron spoke. The mate bond is not just about desire. It is recognition. The moon goddess binds souls that complement each other, that make each other stronger. He paused. You make us stronger, Arya, and I think we make you stronger too. I have been alone my entire life, Arya whispered. I do not know how to let people in. Then learn, Draven said simply. We are patient. Lucian nodded. And in the meantime, we protect you, teach you, help you become who you are meant to be. That is what guardians do. Arya looked at them, at Theron with his controlled strength and hidden guilt, at Draven with his wild power and unexpected gentleness, at Lucian with his precise mind and unwavering loyalty. 3 bonds, 3 threads woven through her soul. Maybe it was time to stop fighting them. Teach me then, she said, everything, how to use my power, how to lead, how to fight, how to be worthy of you. You already are, Theron said softly. But I will become more, Arya replied. I have to. They reached Lucian's contact on the 3rd day. The old wolf lived in a cave system deep in neutral territory, ancient, blind, but his mind was sharp. First wolf, he rasped when they entered. I wondered if I would live to see another awakening. You know the prophecy, Arya asked. I know all the prophecies. He gestured them closer. Sit, listen, learn. For 2 hours he spoke, told them about the first wolves, about the cycle that repeated every 500 years, about the queen who would either unite the warring kingdoms or burn them all to ash. 3 guardians, he said, strength, shadow, and strategy. They anchor her power, keep her from going feral. Without them, she becomes destruction incarnate. He turned his blind eyes toward Arya. With them, she becomes hope. Who fears this? Lucian asked. Who would want the first wolf dead? Those who profit from chaos, from war, from division. The old wolf's expression darkened. There is a coalition. Wolves from different territories who have gained power through conflict. They call themselves the Broken Circle, and they will stop at nothing to prevent the prophecy from coming true. We need names, Theron growled. The old wolf shook his head. I know only whispers, shadows, but their leader, Alpha Mordrin. He has orchestrated 3 territorial wars, grown fat on conflict. They returned to Crescent Moon territory on the 5th day and found the village burning. Not the whole village, just the healing ward. Flames reached toward the sky. Wolves ran with buckets of water, desperately trying to contain the blaze. Arya ran. Elder Rowan stood outside the burning building, his face covered in soot. "What happened?" Arya demanded. "They came an hour ago. 6 wolves, black armor. They set the fire and left." Rowan's voice broke. "I tried to save the supplies." "Where is everyone, the patients?" "We evacuated them. Everyone got out." He gestured to a group of injured wolves nearby. "But the supplies, 30 years of collected remedies, gone." Arya looked at the burning building, at the flames consuming everything her parents had taught her. Her wolf rose into her, not in fear but in fury. Enough. She walked toward the flames, heard Theron shout her name, felt the heat on her skin, did not care. The silver mark on her collarbone blazed. Power erupted from her in a wave. Silver light, pure and cold, spreading outward. It hit the flames and the fire froze. Literally froze. Ice crystallized on burning wood. Flames became solid sculptures of orange and red. The heat vanished. Arya stood at the center of the frozen inferno, her hands glowing, her eyes blazing white. "No more," she said. Her voice echoed strangely, layered with power. "No more running, no more hiding, no more fear." She lowered her hands. The frozen flames shattered into harmless ice that melted into puddles. The healing ward was damaged but standing. The supplies were intact, preserved in ice. Arya turned to face the assembled pack. Hundreds of wolves had gathered. "The broken circle wants me dead," she said. "They fear what I represent. They fear unity, peace." She paused. "But I am done being afraid, done hiding what I am." She looked at Theron, at Draven, at Lucian, at the 3 bonds that no longer felt like chains but like strength. "I accept the bonds," she said. "All 3. I claim my birthright as First Wolf, as Moonbound Queen." Her eyes swept the crowd. "And I declare war on the broken circle." The 3 alphas moved as one, knelt before her. "We stand with you," Theron said. "We fight with you," Draven added. "We follow you," Lucian finished, "until the end." The pack erupted in howls, not of fear, of approval, of acceptance. Arya Vale, the healer's daughter, who had survived 3 years of poison and neglect, stood before her people as the Moonbound Queen. The coronation ceremony began at dusk under the full moon. But before the first vows could be spoken, the attack came. Not 50 wolves this time, 500. The broken circle had gathered every wolf who profited from war, from chaos, from the old ways. They surrounded the clearing, black armor gleaming. At their center stood Alpha Mordrin, old, scarred, eyes burning with fanaticism. "Kill the Moonbound!" he roared. Arya did not let him finish. She shifted. Not to her white wolf this time. Something more. Silver light erupted from her body. The 3 bonds blazed gold, from Theron's shadow, from Draven's steel, from Lucian, all converging, amplifying, transforming. When the light faded, Arya stood in a form no wolf had seen in 500 years. Half human, half wolf. 7 feet tall, white fur and silver runes glowing like stars, eyes blazing white fire, claws that could rend steel. The ancient war form of the first wolves. Mordrin's army froze. "You wanted war." Arya's voice echoed, layered with the voices of every first wolf who had come before. "You have it." The battle lasted 12 minutes. The broken circle broke. Those who surrendered were given mercy. Those who fled were hunted. Those who fought died. Mordrin himself fell to the combined might of 3 guardians and their queen. When silence returned, Arya stood at the center of a field of kneeling wolves, 500 former enemies, now pledging loyalty. She shifted back to human form. Lucian was there instantly with a robe. The coronation resumed. Elder Rowan's voice was strong. "Do you, Theron Ashwood, pledge yourself as guardian of strength?" "I do, with my life and my loyalty, until the stars fall." "Do you, Draven Blackthorn, pledge yourself as guardian of shadow?" "I do, with my power and my protection, until the moon fades." "Do you, Lucian Stormcrown, pledge yourself as guardian of strategy?" "I do, with my mind and my resources, until the world ends." "And do you, Arya Vale, accept these bonds? Accept the responsibility of Moonbound Queen?" Arya looked at the 3 alphas kneeling before her, at the crowd of thousands watching, at the future stretching ahead, no longer uncertain, no longer dangerous without purpose. Certain, clear, united. "I do," she said. "I accept it all." The bonds completed. Three threads of light gold, silver, white erupted from her chest, connecting to the three alphas. Power flowed between them, amplified, transformed. The ground trembled, the sky brightened, and in that moment every wolf present felt it. The moonbound queen had risen. The age of division had ended. The age of unity had begun. The broken circle was shattered. The prophecy fulfilled. Arya smiled at her three guardians, at the males who had crossed territories and defied logic to stand beside her, who had fought beside her, who had helped her destroy those who threatened peace. The hard part is over, she said softly, meant only for them. Theron's expression was warm. No, my queen, the hard part was surviving. Now comes the good part. Building, Draven added. Creating, Lucian finished. Three alphas rose, three kingdoms united, one queen who had changed the world. The prophecy was no longer a story. It was history, and their future had just begun.